No, you know, we've
He's certainly capable of it.
we've
I
been
just
able
can't imagine
to
you
we've been
stepping
able
aside
to
that.
turn a lot of ownership over to him. His sisters, you know, he has one sister who works for us.
Okay.
There's another sister who's in Ann Arbor and does not.
Mm-hmm.
They owned a number of our facilities as a threesome, and he bought his sisters out, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago on a slow note.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been able to transfer some stock to him. So he has a very substantive, I think in another year or so he's going to be able to outvote me and I. So, so maybe I won't be here.
Well, now
he's certainly committed, and he's the man today.
Sure. He's married to
He's married to Marley Brown,
who is the granddaughter of Prentice Brown, the U.S. Senator.
Her father,
from Petoskey.
her father, Paul Brown,
Who
who is the youngest child of Prentice Brown,
right,
who ran for lieutenant governor.
Right, 1974. He was also, I think, a regent in the University of Michigan
For
at one point. Yeah.
For years.
Yeah.
That's right. And Paul now runs the Arnold line at Mackinac Island.
Okay. And so Dan and Marley got to know each other pretty early on.
Over the years.
Over the years.
Dan was married after college, briefly, which didn't work out, and he was. They found each other pretty soon thereafter. They were married. I think he was remarried within 2 or 3 years.
Well, and so the Browns, has there been some kind of synergy between the Grand Hotel and the Browns all these years, extending back to Senator Brown?
Certainly true. I mean, Senator Brown was received Grand Hotel, and when it went broke in '29, and my uncle got it out of receivership and got the ownership of it in '31.
Prentice Brown was the attorney?
No, he was the receiver.
He was the receiver, okay.
And the attorney too.
And the attorney too, okay. So there was a connection
there was a connection. But if anyone that's in business in Mackinac County is involved with the Browns somehow,
sure.
I mean, their tentacles are long. They have the bank and lots of property. Big family.
Right.
And they have interests in they own and control the Arnold line. And
did Prentice Brown or other Browns ever own property on the island?
Well, the Arnold line does a lot.
Arnold line, sure. Yeah.
Which is theirs.
Right.
They own, they must own a third of the downtown.
Now, the Arnold line is the oldest of the three ferry lines up there?
Yes.
And did they start it? It's called Arnold. Was somebody named Arnold?
A guy named Arnold. The guy was named Arnold.
And what, the Browns bought it from at some point?
Yes, they did. Otto Lang worked for the Arnolds, and Otto Lang was not connected to the Browns, but became that. And with Otto, they bought the AT company, I would guess in the 20s, but maybe the 30s.
Looking at the Grand Hotel today, you obviously depend a lot on conventions and conferences and group meetings of various interest groups from around the state and country. But that wasn't necessarily always the case, right?
I know, but Mr. Woodfill, I think, was foresighted in thinking that we had to do that. And that's become the way of every sizable building in the country today.
Sure.
And I think that we've been as aggressive as anyone in our business in recruiting and trying to sell that kind of business.
Right.
And we're in it. That's the reason you're seated where you're seated right now. If we weren't hunting conventions, we wouldn't have a sales office here.
Right.
We should have been here long before we were. This is the center of our
Well, you've made up for lost time, I think. You know, you've done very well. What are some of the groups over the years that we might be aware of in Michigan that have come consistently to the Grand that Mr. Woodfill got?
Michigan prosecutors started in the 30s sometime.
Prosecutors Association?
The Michigan prosecutors, and I don't know the year, I know it was in the 30s. And they've been coming ever since, and they missed a few in the war.
Who were the apostles?
The Apostles were the predecessor to the Capital Club, which is a lobbyist group. But I guess there must have been 10 apostles. I'm not sure of that.
They
Bill
were-
Doyle was one of those.
Yeah,
to
they
answer
were
your question.
lobbyists in Lansing.
In Lansing.
And so they would have their kind of like annual or semi-annual
Well, or
conferences
whatever,
or
call it
whatever
whatever you want to call it.
up there.
And we still host the Capitol Club once a year. So we have
Bankers Association?
the Michigan Bankers, the Michigan Hospital, our Michigan Architects, those, and the Michigan Prosecutors have been the four most regular, but we have others now that have been.
Oh, sure.
Michigan Knights of Columbus, which is a
Right.
different, not a trade
Different
association.
kind, but still a
They've
huge
been with
group.
us since the early 50s.
Right, so over half a century.
That's right.
These groups have
That's
all
right.
consistently been coming up, and now you've added
Thank the Lord.
to that. Well, I mean, you know, it makes you wonder how a resort like the Grand Hotel or other hotels in the island could have really prospered very well without this in the early years of the 20th century.
The thing that I think brings home the fact and the truth is that my uncle was early able to understand you could survive probably in July and August, but you can't make it in July and August. You need more.
You need
more
more
revenue.
days in the year.
That's right.
Yeah, so you
And
need
anyway,
June
you're
and
going to
you
get
need September.
the shoulder seasons have been better, and you understand that my first year as manager in '62, we opened June 6th, I think, and closed September 14. Last year we opened April 29 and went till October 26. And that's been our pattern of expanding, but we need more days.
Right.
The more we can get, it's not totally summery in April 29 or
Well, maybe,
October 26.
maybe
but
global warming is a good thing.
That's true. Climate change.
Climate change, we got to be careful here. One thing more, the biennial Mackinac Island Republican Conference held every odd-numbered year. Didn't that start out way back also in like the mid-50s or something? How
Mid-50s.
did
Larry
that happen?
Lindemer and my uncle were friends.
And Larry Lindemer was the chairman of the Michigan Republican
He
Party
must have been.
at
He
that time.
certainly, if he wasn't
Yeah.
chairman, he was
Yeah.
most influential.
Yeah, okay.
And they made a deal to try this thing. And that happened, and it's been here every other year since.
Ever since, yeah, absolutely.
Thank the Lord.
Yeah. I think I first met you in the fall of 1965, if you can believe it,
Up there?
44 years ago, at such a conference. Absolutely.
Well, were
And
you
it
in
was
the
all-
legislature then, or
No, I was before, slightly before I was in the legislature, but that was only like the fourth or fifth conference of that sort you'd had. You know, it's lasted, as you say, every 2 years ever since. In fact, I think the meeting they had this last fall, they claim, was the biggest attendance they ever had.
It's the first time we've been full with it in 15 or 20
15
years.
or 20 years. Well, that's good. Well, listen, Dan Musser, unless you have something more you want to tell me, you have been a gold mine of
I don't know about that, but
information.
Bill, it's
and
always good
facts.
talking with you and seeing you.
Oh, listen, it's been
You're
a
right.
great.
If we met in '65, that's a while.
Well, that is, but you know, the
But
Grand.
neither one of us are young then.
Well, that's right. You know, whatever. But the Grand has gone back even farther than that. Think of that. I mean, literally
That's true.
80 years before that.
That's
The
true.
Grand was just opening up. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank
Musser.
you, Bill.
It's been a great
pleasure.
pleasure.
It has been too.